Hi, everybody. My name is Jared Milrad. I'm the founder of Movie Karma. We're the nonprofit organization that created our podcast here called Rewriting Hollywood, which focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion, social impact, and representation in Hollywood, and really looking at across a slew of social issues, equity, inclusion, and all the other important issues that our industry is facing today. Really lucky to have a special guest with us today on our latest episode. Her name is Alise Willis. She's a multi-talented model, actor, now starring in the upcoming new series on Netflix called Echoes, which also stars Michelle Monaghan and Matt Bomer. Echoes tells the story of identical twin sisters, Lenny and Gina, who decide to swap their lives. However, there are then dire consequences when one of the twins goes missing, which causes both their lives to rapidly fall apart. It looks terrific. I'm really excited to talk to Alise about that project, but also about her background, which is taken her across multiple cities and careers and journeys. So I'm excited to hear about that as well. Alise, thanks so much for being on the show today. Excited to have you on.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's give our listeners a little bit of background about you, and I don't want to ask you some questions about it.
Okay.
I saw that you have always had dreams of being in front of the camera. You got your start in the fashion industry, I believe, as young as age 16. You
Mhm.
signed with Ford Models. You then moved to New York City and sort of launched into this career in fashion and modeling, and then you've kind of come on to the last like decade or so, have had a really successful run here in LA and in Hollywood, appearing in projects like Coming to America, Mixed Dish, 68 Whiskey, and you've also done a bunch of commercial work for the likes of Toyota, Facebook, American Express, and some print campaigns as well,
Yeah.
for Coca-Cola and others. So really fascinating, kind of bunch of different paths there. Can you tell us a little bit, at least, about like some of your earlier days? Was modeling or fashion kind of your first love? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I started as a teenager. Really, I started at 15, but I was with an agency that wasn't quite legit. And so I didn't get with Ford until I was 16. And I kind of just got into the modeling world. My sister, who's like 17 months older than me, she wanted to be a model. So because my older sister wanted to be a model, I kind of wanted to do it too. And I jumped into it at 16 and it kind of just took off from there. I started traveling around the states with my mom from like 16 to 18, and then
Wow.
when I graduated high school I moved to New York City, and that's when I started doing it more full time, high fashion, runway. And New York City was my base for about 8 years, but I also lived in Europe for a couple years and did runway. And yeah, I mean, I always knew that I wanted to be in front of the camera. I didn't know that acting was something that I could really do. It was always so far removed. I didn't know anyone who was an actor. And even modeling was something that was unheard of. So I was grateful to have like these experiences early, and it definitely was the blueprint for my acting.
Yeah, really fascinating journey there. Like, tell us a little bit about the modeling days, because I think a lot of folks, I mean, I know I don't, I've met folks across the year who've been in that space, across the years who've been in that space, but tell us, for those who haven't worked in modeling or familiar with fashion, like, I can imagine it's a very high pressure, high stakes environment. Like, what was that
Yeah.
like as a young person navigating that?
I mean, as a young person, I didn't realize all of the negative aspects that came along with it. I was at my skinniest, and even at my skinniest, going to Paris, I had to lose 5 kilos, which was about like what, about 8 pounds or something like
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
And it was a Friday that they told me that I needed to lose it by Monday. And so it's all of these unrealistic ideas and about a woman's body. And for me, being skinny was natural. It wasn't like I had to like try, but even though I have like a naturally slim physique, I was like in the gym, during fashion week on the treadmill, watching what I ate. And like I said, while I was going through it, it was normal. It's a part of my day-to-day life. And then it wasn't until after it was over and I'm looking back and I'm like, that nothing about that is normal. Um,
Yeah.
Being the only black girl in a show, if they want a black girl, and
Mm.
be the token black girl, that was also a normal part of my thinking. Like it's, to be that one black girl, you want to be that one black girl, and that's not okay.
Yeah, no, not
At
at all.
all. And so it's like these normalcies in modeling that is
Mhm.
not normal at all, that I kind of had to like unpack. But
Mm.
with all of the craziness and the racism and the negative aspects of it, it was a lot of beautiful moments and experiences. It took me all over the world, and just
Mm.
like the experiences that I got to have as a model, and some of the things that I got to do as a model that I wouldn't have gotten to do if I wasn't.
Mm.
It just kind of like opened my mind. It was a school in itself. And taught me a lot. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I appreciate you opening up too about just the challenges of being not only a young woman, essentially a girl, you're a teenager, but also being a black woman and a black girl, like, and not seeing that representation. And so it sounds like your experience was very much one of, correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of feeling like there's not really other folks to look up to, that the industry is essentially um tokenizing me, as you said, like not sort of fully validating my full humanity. Was that your experience throughout your journey there, or did you see the industry shift while you were doing that work?
Um, I really didn't see a shift while I was a model.
Mm.
I mean, you had the Naomi Campbells and the Tyra Banks, and then you had some of the like Jordan Dunns, and then you had some black girls that were working, but it was a very small percentage versus like a white girl that's working. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it change while I was working, but I do feel now there has been a shift. More, there's still a lot of work to be done, okay? But
Yeah.
there was a moment, I want to say around maybe 2010, 11, there was this, oh, now the thing to do is to have a black girls, So I was a part of one couture show in Paris where it was all black girls.
Mm.
And that was beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, is this the
Mm.
new wave? Is this how the fashion industry is going to be? I think it was like a phase. It was like the thing to do, which I hope with TV and film, that's not the case now, but I do feel like there is a surge of more people of color getting roles. And I hope that's not a phase. I hope that this
Yeah.
is the way the industry is going. Because I mean, we
Yeah.
have people of all races, of all colors, and like those stories need to be told. It's not just black and white.
It's not, and I want to get to that, and I want to get to your experience kind of transitioning into this industry versus your experience in modeling and fashion.
Mhm.
But I did want to touch on too, because you raised a good point about body image as well, beyond just issues of race, but also just the issues of body, the pressures that women particularly have faced in that industry. I understand to look a certain way, as you said, to weigh a specific weight, even within
Yeah.
days of notice. Like, how did that impact you, and what is your message to other young women or young girls who might be listening to this and thinking like, hey, I'm interested in modeling, or I'm interested in fashion.
Mhm.
Like, how do folks navigate an industry like that, that's putting so much pressure on how you look in every single day?
It's not easy.
Mm.
Like I stated before, I didn't realize the severity of it while I was in it because it was normal. So I didn't realize how severe it was. Um, I would, I'm grateful now that the industry has changed dramatically. I mean, you don't no longer need to be 5'11", 6 foot. You know, they have girls that's like 5'6", 5'7" that's modeling now. And um, as much as your body image is still important, I think because we have more of shapes and curves, it's more accepted to not be as thin. And listen, I whatever is healthy, I speak to all the women out there, like there's a place for everyone, and don't bend over backwards to try to fit these unrealistic standards. That's not healthy, that's not realistic. And it's my career, it lasted a good 10 years before I decided to step away. It's not a lifelong career.
Right. Yeah.
And you change as you get older. So love yourself, and just be you. I think there's enough space for everyone, and I'm grateful that now we're in a new age where our individuality is celebrated more now than before. It's not
Yeah.
so, standardized. So,
Yeah. It's about time, if not past time, for that to
yeah,
happen. Let's
yeah.
talk about your transition to film and TV. So you had been modeling, you said, in fashion for a while.
Mhm.
You dreamed of being in front of the camera, as you said. What sparked that transition? Was it a sense of, like you said, there's not permanency, perhaps, as you in your work as a model, or that you had always had kind of this dream and you wanted to pursue it? Like, what was that transition like? And tell us about some of the challenges of that.
Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to act, but like I said, I didn't know that there was a space for me. I didn't, it wasn't like attainable. Being in New York City, there's like a melting pot. I found myself in an acting class and I was terrified. Okay. I was absolutely terrified, but I was like, ooh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So modeling was my bread and butter, and that was, number one. But I would take classes and different workshops and try different techniques. There was a crossroad in my career where I was in New York City and I had the choice to either go back to Europe and continue to model, or to follow my dreams and do what I really wanted to do, and that's act. So I took the leap of faith and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to LA. I moved to Los Angeles and I realized, I was like, ooh, I cannot act. So I just like immersed myself in class, and full time for like 3 years. I just like completely 100% gave 100% of myself to class, and did the groundwork of finding my own representation, and manager, then agent, and I had to kick the door down myself, per se. Like I didn't really have help, and I mean I feel like I was used to that because I kind of had to do the same thing in modeling. Even when I went to like Europe to get agencies, I didn't have an agent going over. I had to get there, go knock on doors,
Yeah.
and get an agency. So it was kind of the same thing with acting. Like I took that New York mentality of not taking no for an answer and just going after what you want. And of course, after years of like, different reps and, finding my niche, it took a long time, but it worked out. I got the team, and things slowly started happening. I mean, it
Mm.
only started happening for me realistically in the last 5 years, I'd say.
Mm, mm.
Um, so it took a good like almost 5 years for things to like start rolling for me.
And what do you think sparked that transition of it starting to happen to you for you? Do you think it was a combination of training and timing and preparation, persistence, all that?
All of that,
Yeah.
all of that. I'm still training to this day. I think that it's very important. I'm always learning and like always, there's always a light bulb going off. Like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of it like this. And you have to have persistence and patience and um, kind of discernment. There's no like rule book, there's no playbook for this
Yeah.
industry. You just what's right for me could be wrong for someone else. What worked for you doesn't work for me. And so it's just a matter of dedication and having that thick skin. Modeling has helped me with that because like hearing no is is a
Yeah.
part of it. And I remember when I first started modeling, I would I would kind of like push the jobs away from me because I would walk out of we called it castings. I would walk out of a casting and immediately I would beat myself up and I would say, oh my God, my hair was out of place. Oh, I didn't walk good. Oh, this picture. Like I would literally push that job so far away from me
Mm,
because of my own self doubt and self talk. And I'm really big now on like affirmations, manifestations, and also like what's for you is for you. So I don't push jobs away. I bring them to me. And even when they don't come to me,
yeah.
like I have the mindset and the thick skin of like, you know what? On to the next. On to the next.
I love that. Yeah, just focusing on like the positive and trying to, as you said, manifest what you want as opposed to pushing it away.
Yeah.
It's almost like that. I think of that sort of that notion of like following through on a shot in basketball, right? Where it's like I was always amazed as a kid of not being that good at that sport, but just being like
I
that actually does kind of work. Like for some reason the ball has like left your hand, but it actually somehow works. And isn't that kind of true in a lot of these careers as well?
Absolutely. I think that the power of the mind is so strong, and we really do have the power to create the kind of lives that we want, um, and that's a daily journey for me as well. Like I do affirmations every day, my manifestations, and just staying in that positive mindset because this industry is like this, and the highs are highs and the lows are very low. And I've learned that very early on. So just kind of staying balanced and going high, but not going too high where I just crash.
Yeah, you really do have to stay level set. Did you find at least that coming to from modeling to Hollywood that because you talked about sort of some of the body image challenges of being a model. I have a good friend of mine who's an actor who talks about that as well, like acting versus modeling, like
Hmm.
trying to get those different jobs, like the print jobs versus versus TV film. And then you talked about also obviously the issues of race and color and
Hmm.
just lack of representation. Like, did you find similar issues in Hollywood, or did you feel like maybe they were similar but different, but you were prepared in a way because you had modeled?
Yeah, I feel like with modeling, it's more in your face. It's
Mm-hmm.
more like, why is another black girl here? We didn't want another black girl. Like I literally heard
Mm.
that in Paris. Um,
Wow.
and in acting, it's a little bit more covered up. They don't have to. There's one role, and they give it to out of 1,000 people, let's say, who audition for it. One person is going to get it, so it doesn't have to. The race thing doesn't have to necessarily come up, even though that may be like the underlining tone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do feel that since the whole George Floyd, that whole,
Yeah.
the world, the
Mm.
world shook with that. Um, and that's when things kind of turned around for me. I don't know if that had something to do with it. I do get way more auditions. Um, the breakdown seemed to be more open ethnicity versus
Yeah.
they're looking for a white girl, they're looking for a black girl. Now it's open ethnicity, and whatever we like is who will, book for the job. Um, I don't know if that's because I got my series regular with Ruthless. I got that during the pandemic. And so I want to say it was a mixture of both. It's because I started working, things started happening, but I really do think that, they're looking for people of color more now.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that is a good transition overall, or do you feel like that the industry is making, or do you feel like it is that there are limitations to it? Because one thing we've heard is that there is more, seems to be more openness and desire to be more inclusive in casting, like you said, and have more inclusive storytelling. Um, I guess my question is do you feel like the industry is doing it in the right way?
That's my thing. I want to say yes. Like I want to say yes, they are. But if that's an honest, I don't know. I really don't
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of it is jumping on the bandwagon because it is the thing to do. Um, we'll see. I think in the next few
Mm.
years if this is like a trend, like with the fashion, like I told you in the
Yeah.
fashion world, or if this continues. I mean, we are a mixed up world with so many, we're not, no one is the same. And so like we need to tell those stories of the diversity, and we need to have the inclusion. So I want to say,
Mm.
yes, but I don't know how truthful that is.
Yeah, how it's going to play out as we
Yeah,
kind of try to keep these patterns or inculcate these patterns that are so they're more lasting and systemic as opposed to just a trend, as you said.
exactly.
Let's talk about some of your projects. This is really interesting. So you mentioned that you kind of got a series regular for, kind of maybe was a transition for you, and then you have some really cool film credits like Coming to America as well. Before we get to Echoes, even which is coming out on August 19th on Netflix. What tell us about some of that? Tell us about some of those for early parts. Like what sort of started to change the trajectory for you? Do you think?
Power of the mind. Power of mine. Once I started doing I'm religious. I believe in God, and that's a part of my daily life. But once I started really believing in myself and
Mhm.
giving myself the love and just like loving on myself, that's when things started to change. Because I wasn't doing anything else as far as training. I was still heavy into class. I was, still on it with my teams and continuing to uh, get better reps. So coming to America was that came out of nowhere because
Mm.
I auditioned for one of the lead roles and it went to Tiana Taylor. Of course, she's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I remember talking to God and I was like, oh my God, I really want to be in this. I really want to be in Coming to America. The audition came and went, and I found out that I wasn't cast. And so I was like, still keeping that whatever is for me, and keeping that like good, happy, positive energy.
Yeah.
One day I get a call from my agent, and she tells me that they're looking for the royal bather, which I love. The first Coming to America, I mean, I was like
Mhm.
a baby when it came out, but I mean, that's like an iconic role. So when I got cast for that, I was so elated. We shot that in Atlanta at Rick Ross' house.
Oh wow.
And that was he bought the old Evander Holyfield, if I'm not mistaken, house. The
Oh wow.
property is massive. Um, and so just to be on that set, it was really like a dream come true because that's the first film that I did, and just the cast and to be a part of such an iconic film, it was kind of like a dream role.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And did that give you kind of more confidence then to say, okay, I think there's a, there's a path here for me. I'm kind of starting to manifest what I want to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Once you start working and you get that little jitterbug going inside of you, it's like you're off to the races. And that's how I felt. And of course, like things didn't pick up right away. But I started doing like co-star roles, Mixed Dish and 68 Whiskey, and just getting my feet wet on set, which is a completely different ball game from
Yeah.
like class, or like you can't prepare yourself for that, you
Mhm.
know. But Ruthless, that's one of my biggest roles. I mean, I'm a series regular on that show.
Mhm.
And I had been auditioning for Tyler for about a year. And one of his executive producers, they were like, we have a role for you. We're just trying to find the right role. And then a year later, and like 20 auditions
Oh.
later, I was like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what else to do. I don't know. I was talking to my mom and I was I was like fed up and like upset. I'm like, what else do I need to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do the audition for Ruthless, and this is also another thing with acting. Like when you're so precious with it and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. Like you don't hear back. When you're just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna do it, and this is what I got, and this is the best that I can do, and just not being so
Mm.
delicate with it, that's when things come back. So I went camping and I told my team that I'm not gonna have service. I didn't tell them how long, but I told them at 2:30, and my service dropped immediately. 24 hours later, I turned my phone on, and at 2:35, okay, all of these messages are rolling in with the offer on Ruthless, and I'm out here just camping, getting bit up by mosquitoes, having the worst experience because I don't camp. I realize.
Yeah. Yeah. Mistake.
Yeah, like camping, I'll do glamping. Give me like a hotel when it's
Yep.
all said and done. But like, oof.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, finding out that I had Ruthless was like, that's when I would say things really started to like snowball and like take off. And then from there, the offers started coming in, and different opportunities. It was the start of it. Yeah.
Wow. How did you keep yourself grounded or sane through 20 auditions or like that
Oh,
process? And like, what do you say to people who go through that, whether it's auditioning or job interviews? I mean, I myself have been through, we all have, right? Like 5 interviews for a role, and then you don't either you get it or you don't, or you don't hear, but like over 4 months or 6 months, like how did you keep yourself grounded through that?
you know, having patience, not, like I said, not holding on to it, really like letting it go. It's like a fine balance, a thin line, because in one sense you want to like manifest it and like have affirmations for it, and then on the other hand it's like, okay, I need to let it go and completely forget about it. So it's like that fine balance. Um and like I said early on, I would give so much of like 100% of my time after an audition of like manifesting and affirmations. And I was like, it, I didn't, it wasn't healthy, to the point where I wanted it so bad that when I didn't get it, those were the low lows that I was telling you about. So just finding, like, once you're done and you've done all you could with it, truly just letting it go and trying to forget about it. And having a hobby, focusing on something else that you love versus just this one thing. That was something that I had to learn as well, because for years I only acted, and like I didn't have hobbies. I didn't want to do anything else because like it was just acting, just acting.
Right, right.
And that's not healthy. It's like there are so many, acting is not like the end all. And then once I, started to immerse myself in other things, what do I like to do? What are my hobbies? What am I interested in? And if I don't know, go find out. Go figure out what I like to do. Taking my mind off of like just acting, it's so helpful. So helpful.
That's great advice, because I think we can get lost in our art or lost in our passion, which could be also our career. And it's like, well, what else am I passionate about?
Especially when you love it, right? Because I was like, what's wrong with this? I love this, and like you say, I'm passionate about it. So what's wrong with like giving it my 100% of my all? Oh, there's a lot wrong with it.
Yeah. And interestingly, obviously, the acting in particular, right? You're drawing on so many other parts of your life that I'm sure once you sort of loosen up and find those other areas that you enjoy, whether that's like you said, a hobby, whether it's camping or a sport or something else, like then you can draw on that in your work. Interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Echoes before we wrap, because this is a really neat project. You have this part of this incredible cast. How did you hear about the project, and like what attracted you? Tell us about that process.
To be honest, this was like when things started like really snowballing for me, and I was doing 5, 6, sometimes 7 auditions a week. This was just another audition. And it was one of the auditions that I was just like, after, I was just like, I wasn't like, oh my God, that was like so amazing, or like holding on to it. I was just like, on to the next, forgot about it. And before I even did Ruthless, during the pandemic, a lot of casting directors, showrunners, a lot of people in the industry, once the industry shut down, they were doing different challenges and things for the actors to stay busy. So one of the casting directors for Echoes did a monologue challenge, and she gave us 2 different prompts we could use. We had to like start off the monologue saying, "Oh, it's you," and another prompt. I used "Oh, it's you," and then you have to write your own monologue, shoot it, and then submit it to her, put it on your Instagram. I was super self-conscious about it because I'm not a writer. It's my own work. Like, I can take your words and make it mine, but my own words and showing it to the world, I was like, ugh, I almost didn't do it. And then last minute, one of my friends was like, you need to submit this. I just said, you know what? I gave it to her, didn't even think about it. Out of, I think, like 8,500 submissions, I was one of top 20 that she picked. So then fast forward, I did the audition for Echoes, and she was one of the casting directors on it. So, yeah, so it paid off.
Yeah, the relationship paid off.
Yeah. And things move really fast in this industry. So I did the audition, got the offer, and next thing I knew, I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, shooting it.
Wow. That's an incredible story, and also connects to what you're saying earlier about persistence and kind of manifesting through, which connects, I think, to the relationship building piece of the industry, because people see, cast directors see you over and over again. They start to know you, your work. Absolutely. That can help a lot.
Yeah.
Tell us about shooting this, and like what was it like, and like what excited you about just being part of that team, that set?
Wow, you see the cast, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
The cast excited me, and like, wow, wow. I mean, it's just from Michelle to Matt Boomer and Michael and Jonathan Tucker. It is the cast is amazing, and even some of the ones that I'm drawing a blank on, but just the professionalism was on another level. And
Hmm.
the commitment. I mean, I was like a student on that set because with Ruthless, we get one take and then that's it. We're moving on. And so, Tyler Perry sets are known as like the boot camp because it prepares you for the other sets. And it's like once I'm on this set where I get take after take, oh, I got this. So I was like a sponge soaking up everything that I can or could around me. Michelle, she is such a powerhouse, the way that she goes in and like commands the room. Um,
Mm,
Very sweet. But she's like a strong woman and she
yeah.
she goes and she does her thing. Um, and just the talent. Also with like Quentin Peoples, who is the showrunner and one of the executive producers.
Hmm.
Synchronicities, because I also started following him during the pandemic, and then it's like the casting director and then the showrunner. We're all on the same show now, so I was just in a state of like gratitude and yeah, just thankfulness to just be around such great talent and just learning from everyone.
Yeah, that sounds so cool, and it looks like a great show and a great project. No, folks will check it out, and like you said, the talent, yourself included, is it
Yeah,
makes it even that much more exciting for folks.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Tell us before we wrap, movies like what do you think is coming next for you, or what are the types of projects you really want to sink your teeth in, or that you're excited about coming up?
Yeah. I want to do comedy.
Okay.
Comedy is my next go-to. I
Love
love
it.
comedy. I want to get my feet wet with that. And also I want to do more film. I love TV. I got my start in TV and I love to like, watch a new series, week after week or a new episode week after week of a series that I'm on and just kind of watch it from the viewer's point of view. But I want to do TV. I want to do film. So film
Mhm.
is definitely next. And I don't know, my dream role now, it always changes, but I want to be a Marvel superhero.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Yeah. Like kind of like, right on the top of that call sheet, and kind of be,
Okay, number one
yeah,
on the call
yeah,
sheet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and be a Marvel superhero. That's really interesting. I was talking to a few other actors, over the years. We've talked about that too. Just like it's time, to have just so much more diversity and inclusion in terms of who can be those superheroes, and the stories that we're
Yeah.
seeing, the backstories and the origin stories like that. Just be so cool to see so much more of that.
I think so. And I feel like the time is now, as we
Hmm.
were talking about
Hmm.
earlier. Time is now, and it obviously needs to continue, but we need to see more color on TV, and especially in like the leading roles, the fun roles. You want to see people that you can relate to, and I want little girls to watch TV and to be able to aspire and to say, oh, I can do that because she's doing that. I didn't have that, so I want to be able to be that for other little girls.
I love that so much, and I think that is the power of what we do, what you do, just the power of art, the power of representation, and as
Yeah.
hard as it is for you being, some of the first, in so many ways, but like hopefully not the last, and sort of opening those doors as wide as you can, I think is so important.
Yeah, no, I think that I don't think it'll be the last at all. I think that
Mm.
that's a new movement And speaking of manifestations, we're gonna manifest it if it's
That's
not.
right. It's coming no matter what. That's
I
right.
mean, come on, there's no way that we can go back
Mm,
to like the way things were when we've already made so much progress.
mm,
And I remember like listening to my mom, and she's, growing up in the 70s, and there were maybe a few Black people on TV versus I can count on like my hand in the 90s how many. And so now, from commercials, TV, film, and even behind the scenes, not just in front of the camera.
yeah.
Um, there's a lot of change being made.
Yeah, so it gives us hope. And I think like you continuing to tell your story and folks continuing to speak out and demand change and fight for it, like you said, both in front of and behind the camera is gonna be the way forward and critical to like making sure that the world we see on TV and on film reflects our world, like the diversity
Exactly.
and beauty of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's just it. Like, let's
Mm.
just make real life, let's bring real life to life on TV. And that's inclusion of everybody.
I love that. And what a good way to wrap. Alise, it's such a pleasure and an honor having you on again. The new show is called Echoes. It's on Netflix, premiering August 19th. It's awesome. It looks just super, super engaging, thrilling, all those things. And it's really cool that at least you had a chance to be part of it. And excited to see what you do next as well. So thank you so much
Yes.
for being on
Thank
the
you
show.
for having me. I had a great time.
Absolutely.